Fuller never left quietly, and she was never going to return quietly either. When she vanished from Los Angeles, she left behind broken hearts, whispered threats, and enough scorched bridges to keep every gossip column fed for months. But her absence didn't mean surrender. It meant strategy. And when she came back, it wasn't for nostalgia, it was for war. Quinn walked into Forrester Creations like a storm disguised as a woman. No warnings, no calls, just stilettos on Thailand silence thick enough to suffocate. She returned sharper, colder, more dangerous than ever. And she had one mission: to burn Brooke Logan to the ground. For years, Quinn had watched Brooke play queen-dominating relationships, manipulating men, rewriting history to fit her own fragile ego. But now Quinn had proof, and not just petty secrets or fashion scandals. This was darker, criminal, calculated. Brooke, behind the soft smile and golden locks, had plotted Quinn's destruction lately. It started subtly. The night Quinn fell ill after a fashion fundraiser. A minor incident dismissed as dehydration. But the symptoms were off and traceable. Quinn's instincts screamed louder than any doctor's opinion. She vanished shortly after, claiming it was a sabbatical. It wasn't. She was digging, quietly, meticulously. What she found connected dots most wouldn't dare draw. At the center of it, Brooke Logan. The motive wasn't jealousy. It wasn't even revenge. It was strategy. Brooke wanted Carter. Not for herself. For hope. Hope Logan had spent years trying to escape the gravitational pull of Liam's chaos. After multiple attempts at peace, she wanted a new chapter. Someone mature. Someone grounded. Brooke believed Carter was the answer: clean, elegant, respectable. A man Hope could build a brand and a family with. But he was also Quinn's former lover, and his connection to her was still strong. That posed a problem. And Brooke didn't like problems. Quinn's sudden illness had been the first strike. A blend of neurotoxins masked by natural supplements administered through a gift basket delivered under a false sender name. Traced, later, to a service Brooke had used in the past. Too slick to be coincidence. And then there was the leak of fake email from Quinn's address sent to a Forrester investor, revealing sensitive design plans. It triggered a minor panic and a temporary freeze on Quinn's stock holdings. She was discredited, pushed out, and erased from the portal without confrontation. But Quinn wasn't the kind to stay buried. She returned with receipts, medical records, surveillance data, handwriting analyses, security footage enhanced, and a confession of sorts from a third-party technician who unknowingly facilitated Brooke's digital forgery. The next step wasn't subtle. Quinn interrupted a Forrester executive meeting mid-session. Brooke was there, seated next to Ridge. Hope sat across from Carter, who had no idea what was coming. Quinn walked in, dropped a folder on the table, and looked directly at Brooke. "You wanted me gone. You wanted my name erased from this company, from this family. You nearly killed me for it. Now you're going to answer for it," Ridge rose, demanding an explanation. Brooke, composed but pale, tried to laugh it off, to spin it as one of Quinn's delusions. But no one was laughing. Not when Quinn began laying out the timeline. Not when she produced a lab report confirming her blood work was tampered with. Not when she handed Carter a photo of the gift basket tag in Brooke's handwriting. The room exploded. Carter stood stunned, processing the weight of the revelation. Hope's face drained of color. Ridge looked between Brooke and Quinn, betrayed and blindsided. Brooke tried to fight back, tried to deflect, deny, accuse. But Quinn was too prepared. She controlled the room. She owned the evidence. She had the truth. Later that day, Quinn held a press conference on the steps of Forrester Creations. She didn't speak as a scorned lover. She spoke as a wronged executive, an artist, a woman who was targeted by a legacy desperate to preserve its image. She named Brooke Logan directly. She didn't accuse, he proved. The media ran wild. Brooke Logan, beauty brains, and a murder plot. Quinn Fuller strikes back. The Logan empire cracks. Fallout came fast. Carter, devastated, confronted Brooke privately. He had always seen her as a mentor, a friend. Now she was something else entirely. Brooke pleaded, said she did it for hope, that it wasn't poison, just a wake-up call, that she never meant for it to go that far. But Carter was done. He walked out, not just from the conversation, but from Brooke entirely. Hope confronted her mother next, in a scene that would replay in reruns for years. She wasn't angry, she was gutted. All she had ever wanted was a chance at happiness without manipulation. Now she saw that her mother's fingerprints were all over her pain. Hope turned her back, not just on Brooke, but on the idea that Logan loyalty trumped morality. Ridge, always torn, made his choice clear this time. He stepped down from the co-CEO seat until the scandal was resolved. Eric returned to oversee a damage control campaign. Donna tried to smooth things over, but her attempts only made things worse. And Quinn stayed. She reactivated her partnership stake. She returned to design, launching a bold new collection titled Resurrection. She reclaimed her office. She made no apologies. And when reporters asked if she was back for good, she smiled and said, "I'm not here to rebuild. I'm here to reclaim." But the story wasn't over. Because Brooke Logan doesn't lose quietly. Rumors began swirling of a counterattack, legal threats, private investigators, sealed court documents from Quinn's past suddenly resurfacing. The town braced for a second war. But everyone knew the next move wouldn't be in a courtroom. It would be at the Forrester annual gala. Set for the end of the month, the gala was meant to celebrate a new line, but now it promised something far more explosive. Whispers grew louder while Brooke crashed Quinn's spotlight. Would there be a confrontation? A public reckoning? Behind the scenes, security was doubled. Brooke was still technically on the guest list. Quinn made no moves to block her. Instead, she said, "Let her come. I want her to see what survival looks like." The night of the gala arrived. The cameras flashed. Celebrities arrived. Champagne flowed. And then Brooke appeared, draped in white, alone, uninvited but unstoppable. The room froze. Quinn saw her. Their eyes locked across the ballroom. Then Brooke moved straight toward the stage. Gasps followed. Steffi tried to intervene. Hope stepped between them. Brooke didn't stop. But Quinn didn't move either. The two women stood center stage and rising, one falling with legends in their own right. Then Brooke reached into her clutch, pulled out a folded letter. Read it aloud. It was an apology. Raw, honest, but it wasn't surrender. It was a warning. "I may have lost this round," she said, "but this war isn't over. And I always win in the end." She left as quickly as she arrived. And Quinn. She let the silence settle, then whispered into the mic, "We'll see." Los Angeles was watching. The world was watching. And the most dangerous feud in the bold and the beautiful was just beginning. The storm had raged for weeks, and by the time it reached its peak, there was no room left for pretense. Quinn Fuller had taken her battle with Brooke Logan from whispers and innuendo to a full frontal war, and now she held every card. For years, Brooke had operated with the unspoken belief that no matter the damage she caused, she could charm or manipulate her way out of consequence. But Quinn was not like the others Brooke had faced. Quinn didn't bluff. Quinn collected receipts. After exposing Brooke's attempted poisoning scheme and her calculated plan to sever Carter and Quinn so Hope could inherit the perfect man in a sanitized relationship, Quinn didn't stop. She went deeper. She hired analysts, pulled up digital records, dug into financial transactions, and built a case so airtight it didn't just threaten Brooke's reputation, it put her entire legacy on the line. But Quinn didn't go straight to the police. She wanted Brooke to feel it. The panic. The unraveling. The taste of fear that Quinn had lived with when she was being pushed out of Forrester Creations, poisoned, gaslit, and shamed. So Quinn laid out her terms in a quiet, locked-door meeting in the Forrester executive office with only 4 people present: Quinn, Brooke, Ridge, and Carter. And through the glass windows, Hope stood on the outside, watching it all unfold, her hands clenched at her sides. Quinn's voice was calm, cold, surgical. You have two choices, Brooke. Either I take all of this to the police, every drop of evidence, every message, every tampered medical file, every forged signature, or you give the world what it deserves. Brooke scoffed. You want me to go to prison over some fantasy narrative you stitched together because you're bitter and jealous? Quinn leaned in. No, I want you to admit that you failed, that you crossed a line. I want you to look into a camera, tell the truth, and walk away. I want you to resign as the face of Forrester Creations. I want you to let Hoppy, your daughter, decide for herself who she loves without you pushing men into her life like they're hand-me-downs from your closet. And I want that apology. Public. Sincere. No spin. No deflection. Just truth. The silence in the room was suffocating. Brooke looked to Ridge, her voice shaking not from fear, but from rage. You're going to let her do this? You're going to sit there while she threatens me like I'm some criminal? Ridge didn't answer. His eyes, once filled with fire and defense, now held something else. Distance. Disbelief. A cold understanding that maybe for once Quinn wasn't exaggerating. Maybe Brooke had gone too far. Brooke turned to Carter, desperate. You know this isn't me. Tell them. Tell them I would never, but Carter's face was stone. And then Brooke turned to the window, locking eyes with Hope. Her daughter, her last out. But Hope didn't look at her with warmth or understanding. She looked confused, heartbroken, like something irreversible had broken between them. Brooke's voice dropped. So what? I just surrender. After everything I built here. Quinn didn't blink. Yes, the room held its breath. Then Brooke laughed at a high, brittle sound, a desperate attempt to keep control. She stormed out without a word, slamming the glass doors behind her, shoulder brushing past Hope without acknowledgement. Over the next 24 hours, chaos followed. Brooke threatened legal action. She screamed at Ridge. She called her contacts in the press. She drafted statements through publicists, tried to spin the narrative, to bury Quinn's threats as lies. But everything she tried was met with resistance, because no one believed her anymore. Not Ridge, who had once defended her through affairs, betrayals, scandals. Not Carter, whose disillusionment with her had grown with every uncovered truth. Not Hope, who finally saw that the pedestal she had placed her mother on was never built to last. Even Nick, back in town for a Forrester family finance negotiation, heard the news and confronted Brooke at A.L. Giardino in a sharp, cutting exchange that ended with him walking out on her again. His words were few, but they stung. You always said you fought for love. This wasn't love, Brooke. This was control dressed up in concern, alone, cornered, shattered. Brooke canceled her media appearances. She didn't go to Forrester that week. Rumors flooded the town. Press stalked her Brentwood estate. Donna and Katie tried to intervene, but even they couldn't deny what had happened. Brooke had crossed the line between ambition and obsession. The final decision came on a rainy Friday afternoon. At Forrester headquarters, a small press conference was held. Hope stood to the side, Ridge in the back, Steffi and Thomas flanking Carter near the front. Quinn sat in the audience, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Then Brooke stepped out. No makeup, no diamonds, just a clean white blouse and black pants. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice, when it came, was steady. I want to address the recent revelations that have come to light. There have been actions Squeezesy made out of fear, and yes, out of pride. They weren't justified, and they weren't harmless. I wronged people I love. I let my need for control blind me. For that, I offer no excuse, only an apology. She paused. Effective immediately. I am stepping down from all public-facing roles at Forrester Creations. My daughter, Hope, will continue on her own terms, with her own voice. I have nothing else to say, except I'm sorry. Then she turned, walked away from the mic, and disappeared behind the curtain. No questions, no applause, just the echo of silence. The episode closed not with fanfare or melodrama, but with quiet devastation. Brooke, back in her private suite, sat at her vanity. She stared at her reflection, blurred with tears she refused to let fall. Slowly, wordlessly, she removed her engagement ring's latest in a long line of second chances and placed it gently in a silk-lined box. She didn't cry. She didn't plead. She just exhaled a long, hollow breath. Across town, Quinn sat in her newly renovated design studio. The light was golden. Her hands were steady. She opened a velvet box and took out a piece she had been designing for weeks in secret. A necklace. Clean lines. Minimalist. Silver, with a single engraving on the back, freedom. She placed it on the table in front of her, letting it catch the light. There were no more battles to fight tonight, but the war had changed everything. And in its ashes, both women sat in silence, surrounded by the choices that brought them were no longer queens of the same board, but players into very different games.